Whether you agree or disagree, or it just simply goes over your head, you can still quote me, because that's what I said.
And welcome to Native Talks. Now, if you did not hear it from these two lips, then you've been lied to and you've been tricked. Because before you can repeat it or even start to debate it, you just better make sure that you heard me say it. All right, y'all. We are in the day of another celebration. Fathers from all over the world who have lived up to the responsibility, the accountability of being a dad. We celebrate you today. I want to kind of talk about my feelings about Father's Day, and I'm going to have some biblical scripture to kind of back up some of the shortcomings. Now, this particular video, I was not going to do a Father's Day video. Let me make that clear. It was not my plan to do it, but when I went on Facebook this morning, a comment that someone had put up on their page kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And so I said, I'm going to have to address this particular issue because I don't agree with it, and I understood where he was coming from, but I didn't agree with what he was saying. So let me just break it down what I saw. I went on Facebook, and one of my Facebook friends put a posting up there about single mothers. Now, y'all know I come from a single mom. So if you're going to talk on that topic, be careful where you walk. You know what I'm saying? Tread lightly, because you step out of line, you say the wrong thing, and Native Girl gonna have to come for you. That's just how it is. Because when you talk about single mothers, my mother is included in that comment that you're talking about. Because you ain't specifically saying some single mothers, you're saying all single mothers. What happened was this friend put up a posting saying, he said, single mothers, while we do appreciate all that you do in raising children, quit claiming Father's Day. You are not a father. Now, I could have let that go. I'll be honest with you. I could have ignored it. I could have just said, oh, well, that's his opinion, and I'm not going to touch it. But I said, no, because you didn't specify certain single mothers. You made it seem like all single mothers are claiming to be fathers on Father's Day and that they're not giving men their props. I mean, that's kind of the response I took from it. That's how I received it. Now, whether he meant it another way, I don't know. But if you don't clarify yourself, then you leave assumption up in the wind. That's what you do. If you don't thoroughly, put your thoughts out there so that there is absolutely no doubt in what you're trying to say, then you leave assumptions out there. And you must live with your assumptions because you left room for them to grow. You see what I'm saying? So I thought long and hard about what he said. And, I can't even begin to get into my thoughts about it without, just kind of hitting on what Father's Day meant to me, growing up as a child. I have to share how it affected me in order to be able to go into how I feel about it. Father's Day for me was a day that I never fully got to really see being fully celebrated. My memories as a child growing up, my Father's Days were mainly from the age that I was old enough to know what was going on till the age of 12. Father's Day was a day where half the day wasn't nothing going on, just life as normal. probably about midday to the evening was spent at my grandfather's house. My grandfather, which was my mom's stepdad, we would celebrate Father's Day at his house, but it didn't happen until way late in the evening when all the family would gather over there. I don't remember seeing him being given gifts. I never remember seeing that. Now, that's not to say he didn't get any gifts. I'm just saying I was a kid and I never saw him get any gifts. What I did see was my grandmother would cook a huge dinner of his favorite foods, and there would be a cake that would say Happy Father's Day on it that my grandma would make. And by the way, that's back in the day when women knew how to make cakes from scratch and they wasn't going to no place to purchase a cake. They made the cake and put the decorations on them. That was my grandma. But she did that every year. And everyone would just be around him and eat the food and say Happy Father's Day, and he'd blow out the candles. We cut the cake, and that was it. That was the extent of Father's Day that I witnessed. I never had the pleasure of knowing what it was like to celebrate an actual father. That never was a part of my growing up. And for me, again, maybe I would feel some different way about that if I knew that the holiday was never celebrated due to my father's passing, or the fact that I never knew who he was. Maybe I would feel a little different. But the fact that I knew that the only reason why Father's Day was not celebrated in my household was because my dad was never there, and I knew who he was. I had met him. He had sporadic visits with me, but he wasn't in my life. He was never around on Father's Day. Matter of fact, he did not come on Father's Day. So how can I cherish a day that I really don't know what to do with? That was a day that just wound up being a day that you just got through, just like every other day. Now, his comment about mothers taking that holiday. Now, my mother never did. I can't speak for other single mothers. And I think that's where his comment kind of bothered me a little bit, because he was throwing all single mothers into one basket. And when I'm making this comment, I'm saying that, there are some single mothers who don't touch Father's Day. They don't take away from what the day is about. They leave that door open for the father to walk in it if he chooses to do so, which is what my mother did. My dad just never walked in it. So it just became a day that we got through. It wasn't a day that was celebrated. I didn't celebrate my mom on that day. I never did. She had her day. Her day was every day and Mother's Day. But on Father's Day, we never had anything for her on Father's Day. Now, we could have, because she had to step in that role and be father and mother for us. We could have done that and would have been well within our rights to do it. When a position needs to be filled and no one applies for the position, if somebody steps in and does it for free, steps in and does it without the experience and without the tools equipped to do it, but they step in and try to do it anyway, they deserve as much props as they can get. So my mother deserved to claim that holiday, but she never did. Now, to address his comment, if you want to go and address all single women, then I have to address all these fathers that have not lived up to their role as father. You know, the Bible says, honor thy father and thy mother, and your days will be long on this earth. Now, here's where a lot of people might not like what I'm going to say, but it is absolutely the truth. Respect and honor are two different things. They are two different things. Respect is what every human being deserves. You want to know why? Because they literally exist. That's why. If you're able to take in a breath and release a breath, you deserve respect, because that is something that God has given to you that nobody else gave you. Even your mom and dad didn't give you life. They just produced it. They just brought you forth. But the actual ability for you to breathe and for your heartbeat to beat and for your brain to function, that was God's business. So the fact that you literally exist, you deserve respect. And that's why when it comes to, criminal activities and things of that nature, no one has the right to take your life. Why? Because your literal existence had nothing to do with them. Therefore, they don't have the right to take that literal existence from you. You get where I'm going? So every human being has the right to live and be respected because they live. Now, honor is what you do. Honor. When you receive honor from people, it is because of what you've done, not who you are. It's because of what you've done. Think about it. When you join the military and they give you the uniform of a soldier, you earn respect from our country because you joined an organization that is supposed to protect it. You see what I'm saying? You automatically, wherever you go, when people see your uniform, they know you're wearing the responsibility and the accountability. You represent that because you're wearing it. But you don't earn no badges. You don't change ranks. You get no medals until you done something. When people see soldiers and they say, thank you for your service, they talking about what you've done, not for the uniform you wear. See, when you see someone out in the community and they're wearing their fatigues, they're actively in the military. So you know that they're doing something. They're performing a service. They ain't just walking around with the uniform on. That they are performing a service. If you are a retired veteran, you did the work. You fought the battles. You didn't just wear the uniform. You got out there and fought for this country. They don't give the Medal of Honor to someone who just wore the outfit. They give the Medal of Honor to someone who earned that honor by getting out there and doing what it took to get it. It's the same thing with fatherhood. It's the same thing with motherhood. If you want your children to honor you, you got to do something. You got to put in work to receive that honor. It's about what you've done for your children, not the fact that you have the title of father. That's not enough. And y'all can agree with that if you want to or not. But you know I'm telling the truth. Whether you want to admit it, you know that that's the truth. That you can put on the uniform all you want to, but it's about what you do that makes you a soldier. It's what you do where you gain honor. You move past respect. Respect is when you choose to put the uniform on. But honor comes with what you do once you put it on. When you become a dad, when you find out that you're going to be a dad, that's respect. Because now someone is existing because of you. You played a part in someone's existence. So you wear that title. Okay, I'm a dad now. That's respect. You're a father. But did you live up to what a father does? That's where the honor comes in. Now, I like I said, I knew that when I dove into this was going to get sensitive. I get it. Because some men feel some type of way, about that. And I get it. Now, I'm not saying that every single mother has been cooperative with these fathers. Some women have made it difficult, for a father to be with his son, or his children. But I'm going to tell you something. There are legal things on a father's behalf that he can do to fight for his children. If you want to be with your children, there are things you can do. But we got to go back to the beginning. In order to really hit this thing and really, deal with the real behind it, when we didn't do things the way God told us to. I mean, it all, if you think about it, everything that has gone wrong in this country, everything that ain't going the way it should, you got to go back to the surface. You got to go back to the foundation. And that's where you're going to find out where the problem happened. Look, when God said, honor your mother and your father, okay, I believe when he said that, he wasn't expecting for mother and father to be in two different places, living two different lives. He expected for y'all to be in there together, because the honor would come from both of them in there together in the home, taking care of the kids. But if one's living over here and one's living over there, and one's with the kids all the time and the other one occasionally stops by, somebody's short on their honor. The other one's getting more honor than they should, and the other one's not getting enough. But you have to fault the one who is not in there earning their honor like they should. Now, I'm sorry, I know this is going to hurt some feelings right about now, but you got to remember, I'm coming from an experience on both sides of this thing. Now, I'm going to address the drive-by dad, because that's what my dad was. He showed up whenever it was convenient for him. If it didn't fit into what he wanted to do, I didn't see him. And like I said, he never called my mom to let her know he was stopping by. He would just show up. And he didn't care what we were doing, what was going on in our lives. He didn't care. His attitude was, I want to go see my daughter, and I'm going to go see my daughter. And he would just show up. And this usually was met sometimes with, we're not home because you didn't call and tell us. So you show up at the house, we're not there. My mother never told him he couldn't come in. So anytime he did show up, she would let him come in. But we found ourselves trying to adjust our life at that moment to accommodate him. Meaning, if my mom was cooking, she had to, ask him if he wanted to stay, which meant she probably had to expand her meal, kind of expand a little bit to accommodate him. He would never agree to stay, but I do remember times of her asking him if he wanted to stay. Why? Because he showed up when she was cooking for just us. There were times when we were asleep. We may have been laying down, taking naps. And then he shows up, we got to get up now. When we're really tired, we're really worn out, we've had a busy week, and he shows up. This is because he's up and ready to visit, doesn't mean we are. And had he given us a call and let us know he was rolling through, we would have been prepared. There were times when we were watching something on TV, and y'all know back in the day, back when I was young, VCRs came out late 80s, early 90s. So before the VCR, if you was watching something on TV and somebody shows up at your house and totally demands the attention of everyone in the room, and you don't get to watch what you're watching, well, you just missed it. You're not going to see it. So there was many movies, many shows that we had to sit and wait weeks for it to come on rerun, because my dad decided to show up without any concern and consideration, just show up. That happened so many times growing up. And I was, at the time, as I was a kid, I was grateful for it because I was getting to see my dad. But my dad would only stay for probably about an hour or two, and then he would leave. I have to address that, because there may be some men out there that are doing that very exact same thing, and they're thinking, well, I see my kids. I see them, and if they have a need, I break the mother off something. My dad never did. He never gave my mom no money. But there are fathers that may do that. They may come visit, and if the mother says, hey, I need $50 or I need $100, they give her the money. Okay, but you know what that's called? That's not raising your kid. That's called financial support. That's not raising your kid. That's called financial support. And then if you're not giving the woman anything, if you're just showing up whenever you want to show up, or even if you're granting her the courtesy of calling her and saying, hey, I want to see the kids. Can I come by? And she say, yeah. You know what that is? That's visitation. That's not raising a child. You're just visiting. You want to know why I know that's just visiting? Number one, I lived it. Number two, I work in a field where I see kids living that every day. I'm literally picking up kids and taking them to visits with their parents. But these parents aren't raising these kids. Now, where I will give them props is that in order for your child to be taken from you, you had to have raised them at some point. So you do get that prop that at least you was in there. We all make mistakes. But the way to not repeat mistakes is to admit that you made them and then take the corrective steps to fix them. I'm going to hit some biblical scripture now, because I'm going to prove that even in God's word, he demanded that the men, now, sisters, before you even start to come for me, we all know that all us women, we have the Eve complex. We all know that. We got that. Eve proved it a long time ago that if hubby don't stand up, if the man don't stand up and do what he's supposed to do, we will step in and fill those shoes. Eve did that. Adam stood back and let her do it. We all have that in us. So what I'm about to say, I mean, I'm not trying to get y'all angry, but there is scripture to prove that God really had the man in charge of keeping his household together. And that there were certain things that God said to men in particular. And we weren't in that. So that lets us know that if he ain't talking to us, it wasn't meant for us. There's just some things we women cannot carry. And when it comes to raising children, we had our role. God already showed us what our role was. We're supposed to be working together with the father to raise the kids. But let's face it, if he's not your husband, it's kind of hard to do that job when you're living here and you're living there. Again, that goes back to doing things the way God said. You ain't really supposed to be having kids with somebody that you ain't made a lifelong commitment with. But since we blew that out the water centuries ago, that's how we got all this baby mama, baby daddy drama. If we had done it the way God said do it, then the honor would be on both people. Mother's Day would come and you would lavish love on mom. Father's Day would come and you would lavish love on dad. And then when the anniversary of the two of them making the lifelong commitment to raise the children and raise a family, you love and lavish on both of them. God knew what he was doing. We the ones don't know what the heck we doing. And we screwing up the lives that are down here. And I'm living proof that if your childhood is flawed, you bring that into your adulthood. There's nowhere else for it to go. Where is it going to go? You pack it and you drag it. That's what you do. Jesus Christ has to take you back. When you ask God to help you, when you ask him to show you why my life is so screwed up, if you ask God to show you that, I guarantee you he's going to take you right back to where it happened. And 9 times out of 10, your childhood is where that seed of problem began to be planted and started to grow. And God will let you know, if we don't deal with this, everything in life is going to be based on that. Every decision you make, you're going to base it on a flawed foundation. I'm going to share with you a scripture that really stood out to me. This is in Genesis chapter 30. This is about Jacob. Now, Jacob was a trickster. Okay, he was the twin brother of his brother Esau. And from the time they came out their mama, they was fighting. Now, a lot of people believe that Jacob and Esau were the forefathers of Israel and Palestine. There may be some truth to that. I really don't know. At the end of the day, we would have to really confront God on that. But a lot of people believe that. A lot of people believe that Israelis and Palestinians came from the same, birthing spot, the same lineage, but that because they were enemies and they came out fighting from the very beginning, I don't know how true that is. There may be some truth to it. I don't know. But Jacob was a trickster. He always felt inferior to his brother because Esau was the firstborn. Esau was dad's favorite. Now, you got to remember, back then, it wasn't about how your mom felt about you. It was about how your dad felt. Why? Because your dad was the leader of the family. That's just the way God set it up. Sorry, women. I know we don't like to hear that, but that's the truth. And it's still the way it is. Doesn't mean you're loved any less. It just means that that's where the authority was given. God gave man the authority. So it wasn't about whether your mom loved you. You knew your mom did. But how your dad thought of you, that was the big thing. And Jacob was favored by his mother, not by his father. And Esau being the oldest, that meant that everything that his dad had would go to him. Jacob didn't like that. Jacob was not feeling that. He's like, oh, this ain't happening. How is it that he gets everything? I'm just as good as him. It ain't about whether you're just as good. That's the way it's set up. But evidently, Esau, and see, this, I mean, I don't want to get deep into it, but I mean, in order to explain this next thing that I'm going to read of this Bible scripture, Esau didn't appreciate the role he had. God had made him the oldest, the strongest, and highly favored by his father. That is a beautiful honor to have as a man, as a son, to have your father's approval, and then you're the oldest, which means you get everything that he has. That is an honor. But Esau didn't really treasure that. He was all stuck in what his ability was, what I can do. Yeah, my dad's supposed to leave me stuff, but whatever. And he felt that way. But Jacob, who didn't have that, he desired it. And when he seen that his brother didn't really cherish it, he decided, well, hey, maybe I can get him to give it to me. If he don't want it, I'll take it. So he duped his brother by using his weakness against him. He seen that his brother was hungry, and he was like, hey, I'll give you this soup, but you got to give me your birthright. You got to give me that. In order to get this, you got to give me that. Now, if you really cared about the fact that you were the oldest, the fact that you were your father's favorite, and you knew what it meant to get the blessing from your father, you don't give that away to nobody, not even your kinfolk. You don't give that away. Why? It's an honor to receive the blessings from your father, to have that passed down to you. But if you don't see the pleasure in it, if you don't see the beauty in it and the value in it, you just toss it. And that's what Esau did. For a bowl of porridge, he gave away his birthright to Jacob. So Jacob was a trickster. Now, God allowed that because he seen that Esau didn't treasure what he was given. But you can't let a trickster think they can just go through life doing that stuff. You got to let them know that, hey, you just are susceptible to doing the same thing. And what happened? Down the road, Jacob was tricked. The very thing that he had done to his brother was turned around and done to him, where he was led to believe that the wife that he wanted was given to him when actually it was her sister. And he did not want the sister. He wanted the one that he wanted. So, because of all of the trickery that happened with Jacob, he got stuck with 2 wives. He eventually did get the woman he wanted, but he was stuck with the one he didn't want. Why? Because the one he didn't want was always having his babies. And the one he truly loved couldn't have none. He was promised the one he wanted, but he was given the one he didn't want. And when he finally had both of them, he knew he couldn't get rid of the one he didn't want. Why? Because she was the mother of the children that he had. But he certainly wasn't going to get rid of the one he loved. So now he had 2 wives and all these children. Now, their father, who Jacob had worked for, was reaping all the benefits of having Jacob live there. He was like, Jacob worked for me. He works for me, taking care of my cattle and everything. And he took my daughters off my hands. You know what I'm saying? He took both of them off. I know that they're taken care of, but he also works my land. So I'm making money off of him too. Well, now Jacob is a man. And he didn't go to the wife or the mother of his wives. He didn't go to his mama. He didn't go to his daddy. He went to the father of the women that gave him his daughters. And this is what he said, because Jacob wanted something for himself. He's like, look, now I done worked for you. He said, but I want something for myself. A true man don't want their children out there being raised by a woman by themselves. A true man is going to want to be in there in the trenches raising his child with the woman. This is what Jacob said in Genesis chapter 30, verse 25. And it came to pass when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, Laban was Rachel and Leah's father, send me away that I may go unto mine own place and to mine own country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go. For thou knowest my service which I have done thee. Now the father is getting upset now because he's thinking he got a good thing going. My daughters are not, I'm not financially responsible to take care of them anymore. They've both been given to this guy that works for me, that I hired to work for me. So I can sit back and still see my daughters, still interact with them, see my grandchildren, still interact with them, know that they're taken care of, and I don't have to take care of them anymore, but I'm also getting money because he's taking care of my land and I'm getting rich. He didn't want to let him go. So then the father, Laban, Leah and Rachel's dad, said, Laban said unto him, this is verse 27, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry. For I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake. And he said, appoint me thy wages, and I will give it. Verse 29, and he said unto him, thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle was with me. Verse 30, for it was little which thou hadst before I came, and it is now increased unto a multitude, and the Lord hath blessed thee since my coming. And now when shall I provide for mine own house also? Verse 31, and he said, what shall I give thee? And Jacob said, thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cow, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hire. So shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when it shall come from my hire before thy face. Now I'm going to stop there. Notice what took place there. Jacob realized that I am not fully a man if I'm still living up under this man's house with his daughters. I got kids of my own that I got to support, and I'm still living up under her dad. I don't have a life of my own. And so he goes and confronts him man to man, saying, now you got your wife and you had your children and you have your life where you supported for your family. When am I going to get mine? But the father is going, hey, you done made it easy. You know, I know God blessed me when he brought you. And Jacob was like, yeah, I know that. Because I know when I came to work for you, you didn't hardly have nothing and everything grew once I came. He said, but look, notice what he said here. He said, now when shall I provide for mine own house also? Meaning, I've done for you. I've helped you. I took your daughters off your hands. I've had children. I've done everything to help your life increase. But now I got a life of my own. When am I going to make my own family happy? My whole thing is that a man who loves his children is not going to want to be there part-time. He's going to work at being in his children's life 24/7. Now, you may have started out with a situation that ain't good. You may have started out with, you got a baby by a woman that y'all ain't together. But that don't mean the two of y'all can't work something out to where you are in it just as much as she is. Depends on how much you love your children. Depends on how much you're willing to sacrifice, how much of yourself you're willing to give up in order to make that happen. There's also other scripture in here that proves that God had a little authority on the men. See, I know that women don't like to hear this, but like I said, we all were created to be a help to the man. That's the only reason God made us females. That's the only reason why he did. I know y'all don't like to hear that. It's hard trust me, I am a Christian woman. I've been saved since I was 4 years old, and I rededicated my life to Christ when I was 15. And I still struggle with hearing that the only reason that I was created was to be a help to a man. But get this. This is the gotcha. If that man don't choose me, God got something for me to do. Because I serve him above everything else. If there's no man for me to help, there's always God. There's always something that God will have you do. Because he can't make the man choose you, but God chose you to be born. So there's always something that needs to be done, some work that needs to be completed. So don't ever feel like that statement of, we were created to help the man means we're demeaned or put down in some way. No, it just means that you had a reason for existence. But that existence always has a purpose. Always. Now, the reason why I say that there are things that God confronted the man on is because that's who God gave the authority to. There's a lot of pressure on men, and I think that's why so many of them are running from it, because there's so much pressure on them to do what God told them to do. See, y'all, it ain't about us female. I know that we'd like to make it about us. That's that Eve complex in us. But when when these men don't do what they're supposed to do, they ain't got to answer to us. They got to answer to God. Why? Because God gave them that responsibility. We didn't give them it. He gave it to them. And when they don't live up to it, they got to answer to him. Unfortunately, we deal with the fallout. But trust me, God will deal with them on that. See, I've seen here in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. See, when I read this, I found it interesting that it didn't say parents. It didn't say mother and fathers. It said fathers. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4 says, "And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath." Now, hang on here. Listen to what this says. "But bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. It didn't say, come visit them and tell them about me. It didn't say, come visit them and then drop off mom some money so that she can buy them some new clothes and some new shoes. It didn't say, just come by when you feel like it. It says, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up. Meaning you're supposed to be in there. You're supposed to be in the home, taking care of the children, setting the standard of the man of the house. You're supposed to be in there. Why does he say provoke not your children to wrath? Because what do you think's going to happen if you ain't there to bring them up? What do you think that means? That means that your children are going to be angry because you weren't there. And aren't we living in a time where we're seeing so many kids that are trying to navigate their childhood, trying to navigate their teens, and trying to fight against the past to be the men and women that they should be because they lacked the presence of their father in the process. I'm seeing that so many times throughout the day. And you know what's really sad for me is when I deal with kids who are visiting their mothers. They don't even have their moms in their lives, but their dads are totally non-existent. They're visiting mom, living with strangers, but dad's not there at all. That says a lot. That says a whole lot. I just don't know how a man can go on with his life knowing that he has a child out there, an extension of him, and never know the child, never try to find the child, never try to build a relationship, never do nothing. You know, my father may not have been a good dad, but I give him props for at least allowing me to know who he was. My mother never knew her dad until right before he passed away. And if it wasn't for my grandmother calling my mother up, look, you know, it really, that my grandmother won so much cool points with me on that. In her old age, she found out what nursing home he was at. And she called my mom and told my mom, I found your dad. He's at this nursing home. Go see him. My mother lived the majority of her life and never knew who he was. She knew his name, but she had never seen him. Never knew him. I was with my mother the day she went to the nursing home and I met her dad. And all of the feelings that I had to work through, my mother was just starting to work through that in her late 50s. I had been dealing with it since I was a little kid. But my mother had to start in her 50s dealing with finding out who her dad was and knowing that he chose to not be in her life. You see what I'm saying? These wounds of a missing dad, you carry that with you. There is nowhere else for those emotions and pains to go. You will drag them into your adult life. Only through Jesus Christ do you learn to look back and see where that comes from. And God will help you work through that. But you got to go back to the root. If you don't go back to the root, you don't recognize that that's where the problem is. And then when you enter into relationships and they're not working out, and you're trying to figure out, how come I can't find a relationship that lasts? How come I can't find it? Well, if you go back to where your trust was broken, where your heart was bruised. It's only from there that you can begin to heal. So Father's Day, I applaud the fathers who try to be a part of their kids' life. I applaud the fathers who are in it to win it. They are in the trenches. They are there with their children all the time. When the sun comes up, their children sees their face. And when the sun goes down, their children see their face. And all in between. Their fathers are there for the good. Their fathers are there for the bad. I applaud you. And I honor you this day. Because I know that that is an honor that a lot of men chose to walk away from. My prayer is that a father look at his life. And if he knows that he has not lived up to being the father that God created him to be, that he began to seek God on how to begin that journey. It is never too late. As long as you are breathing and your child is breathing, it is never too late. By the end of my dad's life, I was on speaking terms with him. I had forgiven him for not being in my life and for a whole host of other feelings that I had about him. I forgave him for that. And I led my father a week and 3 days before he passed away. I led my father to Jesus Christ right there in the nursing home. And do you know what the Lord let me know? That was the reason you were never with him. It was because he didn't really listen to those that were close to him. He listened to people who weren't that close to him. I did not know that my dad had watched me. Out of all of my brothers and sisters, I'm the only one that doesn't have kids. The only one. All my other siblings have children, and I'm the only one that don't. Out of all of my siblings, I'm the only one that I believe was the church daughter, you know. I mean, I know that they probably went to church. I'm not saying that they didn't go, and I'm not saying that they don't believe in Jesus. I'm just saying that it was known that my mother was the church lady. She was in church all the time, and she had me there. My dad didn't like that about me the majority of my life. He didn't like the fact that my mom had me in church. But isn't it funny that the very thing he didn't like was the very thing he listened to at the end of his life? I know that my dad's journey was not easy. I found out a lot about his childhood that really opened my eyes to how he became the man he was. When you know more about a person's journey, you'd be surprised how God opens that heart of forgiveness, and you find yourself not holding grudges and not being angry anymore because you know more about how they got to be the way they are. They didn't just wake up that day and be that way. There were things that led them that way. To know that my dad and I shared that moment before he passed, the fact that God granted me that was the best gift that I ever could have been a part of with my dad. To offer him Jesus Christ, and he accepted. That was something I thought I would never live to see. To go from a father who could not stand the fact that I was going to church to a father who accepted Christ. And all of that was built on the fact that I was one of the children that he really didn't claim too much and never really was around. but I was the one he listened to about Jesus. I'm honored to have been the one that God used to reach him. I'm grateful for that opportunity. And now when I speak about Freddie King, my dad, I'm honored to have been a part of the journey of his life. It came with a lot of bumps and bruises and twists and turns. But in the end, it led to Christ. And for that, I am honored. I encourage you, fathers, if you're not having a good relationship with your children, just know that it doesn't have to stay that way, but that starts with you. Don't let a bad relationship with the mother prevent you from being with your children. You know, some women, all we want is an apology. I know with my mother, when my dad said he was sorry to my mom, and yes, he did say that. He told my mom he was sorry about the way he had treated her all those years. He told her that. I witnessed him say that to her. And my mother stood there and cried. All those years, that's all she wanted to hear was, I'm sorry. If you say you're sorry for not being the father that you should have been to the children that you created with the mother, you'd be surprised how many walls of contention, how many walls of frustration, how many walls of hatred that can knock down. If you just admit that, hey, I messed up, but I'm here now. I encourage you to be there for your kids. Let them know who you are and let them be a part of your life. You do that, and they will honor you till the day you draw your last breath and beyond. Happy Father's Day to all fathers. God gave y'all a responsibility that I know ain't easy. But he said you will be a man that is truly blessed when you live up to it. Happy Father's Day, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. And until the next episode, see ya.
If you like my vibe, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Till the next time, see ya.